We're just right on time, so we will be finishing early. And this is the last topic. So I will be discussing about improving feed utilization. Many of you have probably asked at some point, how long will my hay last this winter? And that actually leads to a bigger idea, like how well my cows are using the feeds I'm putting in front of them. And that is feed utilization. Feed utilization is simply how much of the feeds you're giving your animals are actually being used for source of energy, for maintenance, for weight gain, for immune response, and not wasted as manure, as feed refusal, or undigested feeds. Why should we talk about feed utilization? Why feed utilization matters? Feed accounts for 60 to 70 of your total operation cost. And according to Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, in 2024, feed accounted for 68.48% of your operation cost. And operation cost doesn't include your capital cost, which is your animal cost, your depreciation, and other implements that you use. Operation cost just covers feed, yardage, interest, your marketing, and also your veterinary health expenses. So it is so big that just 2 to 3% improvement in feed utilization can translate into 1.5 to 3 kilogram increase in your finishing weight per cattle per cycle. And efficiency is also very important because it improves the sustainability. When your feed is efficient, it is very sustainable. It is eco-friendly. Nothing much will be wasted in the environment. No, not much nutrient leaks. And also, if your feed is efficient, it means that your cattle will be healthy. What influences feed utilization? We will be discussing four items. First one is your feed quality and the digestibility of your feed. Next one is the diet structure or your ration balance. Third is feeding consistency and bank management. And last is the gut health, which we might touch on also on stress and inflammation. In terms of feed quality and processing, your forage quality is highly affected by the maturity when you harvest them, how you store them, and some of the ensiling methods that you have used. And the measure of your forage quality is your forage digestibility. And forage digestibility can be measured by percent TDN, total digestible nutrient. So how would you know the TDN of your forage? If you have your forage analyzed, if you have your grain analyzed, it is indicated in the analysis the laboratory is given you. The higher the total digestible nutrient, the higher the digestibility of your feed. Also, the digestibility of your feed is also affected by grain processing, like steam flaking corn. The higher the starch digestibility, the more you process your corn, like you steam flake it, the higher the starch digestibility. It can increase by 8 to 12%. And also when you fine grind the corn, the starch digestibility will also be higher. However, there is a risk of acidosis. So we don't, as much as we want to use highly digestible feeds or forages, there's also a risk, which I will be discussing further later. And also, in terms of feed quality, it is important to know what is the moisture content and in turn, to know the dry matter intake. A forage that has 20% protein but 10% moisture is very different from a forage that has the same level of protein, 20%, but the moisture is 30%. They are two different forages. So it is wise to know the moisture level of your forage, as well as the TDN and all other that you can look in the forage, like the minerals, because it prevents miscalculation, and also it helps your nutritionist not to go guessing, but formulate a accurate, balanced ration for you. This is a study done by NASEM, National Academics of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. They studied different levels of TDN of forages, from 42% level of TDN to 70% level of TDN. And they found out that the higher level of TDN, the more your animals will eat, the higher the dry matter intake. So the more digestible your forage, the more your animal will eat. However, they also found out that when the TDN level, or the digestibility of your forage, reach above 70, the dry matter intake drops. And why is that? Because cow has a natural monitoring system. They know what they would eat, they know what would cause harm to them, because they would know that if the feed is too highly digestible, there will be faster production of volatile fatty acid. And since they don't need that much at the same time, volatile fatty acid will just accumulate, causing subacute acidosis. So they have this very natural way to monitor not to eat. So it's not always, if it is highly digestible, that doesn't mean it's always good for your cows. In terms of ration formulation, it is very important to balance the ration. There should be a balance of energy and protein. Your cows doesn't use energy and protein separately. It is being mixed in the rumen. And when energy and protein comes at the same time, the growth of the bacteria are better. And if one is missing, it means that the other will just be wasted. So they should always be in partner, they should always come at the same time. You cannot just say, oh, I just want high energy diet, or I just want a high protein diet. They should always be balanced. And also, we should always give them some effective fiber, or your highly digestible fiber. Just right amount of digestibility. And aside from the energy and protein, we also have to balance the calcium and phosphorus. We always do that because the level of the other affects the absorbability of the other. So if you have too much phosphorus and less calcium, then most of the phosphorus will not be absorbed as well. So there should be a good balance. And aside from the calcium and phosphorus, which are macro minerals, we also look at the trace minerals. We have discussed this earlier. Trace minerals are zinc, copper, manganese, copper, selenium. Those minerals that are needed by your animal in small amounts. Because they don't just fill the mineral requirement of your animal, but they are involved in a lot of rumen enzyme activity involving immunity, and they also have antioxidant capacity. And when choosing trace mineral, it is always better to choose organic versus the inorganic, because organic are bioavailable minerals. And in ration formula, we should always consider also using supplements. We mentioned vitamins and minerals, seaweeds for its natural vitamins, minerals, and prebiotic support, antioxidant as well. And I cannot emphasize enough that immune enhancers like lactobacilli fermentation product, or the postbiotic, which is present in biolac, is very important. This study was done by Transagra, where we sourced the main ingredient of our lactobacilli fermentation product, or the main ingredient of our biolac. And they studied 9 different feedlot farms. Some of the calves were given diet without biolac, and another one was given with biolac. Very simple treatment design. So they found out that those animals that are given with diet with biolac increase their daily gain by 17.7%. And why is that? Because their feed intake was stimulated. Feed intake was higher also by 11.7%. But the bigger question is that the gain in weight compensated for the feed intake, because you spend some more because they have higher feed intake. And that can be measured by feed conversion ratio, your feed utilization, or feed over gain. And they found out that those given with biolac has 15.9% higher FCR. And why is that? Because products like BioLab take care of the rumen. And rumen health is equivalent to feed efficiency. Because the rumen microbes are the one making the volatile fatty acid, and 70% of the energy requirement of your animal comes from those volatile fatty acid. So if there's a rumen dysbiosis, it means that there will be lower fiber digestion. Your forages will not be digested, and that will mean lower volatile fatty acid, lower energy, and then lower gain. So postbiotics and fermented products help increasing the volatile fatty acid production, and also it helps in rumen stability because it regulates the pH, it also stimulates the natural immune system of your animal. Aside from the forage quality, the ration balance, another thing that we can look into is your feed delivery and bank management. We must have some uniform TMR mixing to prevent sorting, and also it ensures that the intake is consistent. So we have to make sure that the sizes of your forages are uniform, because otherwise your feed will just be sorting them and it will mean feed waste. Optimal moisture, we must look into the moisture level of your TMR, because moisture level improves mixability. An optimum level of around 45 to 50% is the best one in addressing sorting and uniform mixing. Consistent delivery times. What time you feed your animal yesterday must be the same time you will be feeding them today, and the same time you will be feeding them tomorrow. That's consistency, because it reduces digestive stress to your animal. Bank scoring. Probably some of you has already been doing this, or you might want to consider doing bank scoring. So if you notice that the feed are all swept, they feed all the feeds you've given them, you can assign, for instance, 0. And then if you found out that the next day there's a small sheet left, you can assign 1, and so 2 or 3, and so on. So every day, looking into the feed bank give you a better idea, like, are they really eating? Do they need much? It give you a better estimate of how much should I give them tomorrow, or how much should I give them the next day, depending on how much is left. Or probably there's a problem why I've given this much, but they are not eating. Next is we have to avoid feast to famine cycle. You will begin giving them a lot today, and then you will be giving them none tomorrow. It's connected to the consistent delivery times. This one is consistent amount of feed given to them. So it's not enough that they eat a lot today and then tomorrow they will not eat. And we have to practice gradual feed increases. It means whenever we want to increase the feed intake of our animal, we have to do it gradually. And the optimum level is 300 grams increase per head per day. Next is, this one is reducing feed wastage. This is one of the most commonly neglected reason why feed utilization drops. Because shrink losses accounts for 5 to 20% if unmanaged. So we just thought what my animals didn't eat will just go to waste. But also those wastage blown by the air, spilled during feeding, we have to take account of that, because those are the feed that should be converted to energy, converted to gain, but then it got lost. So in our feed storage, we very much as well cover them to improve our preservation, to prevent a lot of nutrients to just evaporate, And also, it is important to calibrate your scale to be more accurate, to really know how much you are giving your animal. To wrap it up, feed quality testing is really important. We really have to know the real value of your forages to be able to accurately do a ration for you. Balanced diet together with consistent feeding behavior improves K to feed ratio. No matter how good your formulation is, your ration is, if you are not going to give it to your animal consistently, it will just go to waste. And rumen health is the foundation of efficiency. If your rumen function is good, when the rumen of the animal is healthy, it will also mean feed efficiency. Natural additives like postbiotic, I cannot emphasize that enough, and also organic minerals provide proven benefits. And I have showed you studies from my first presentation about organic minerals. I showed you a study with this presentation about postbiotics, and they have proven benefits. And management practices like bunks, mixing, storage influence the outcome as much as the ration. So that's it. Thank you for listening. If you have other questions, I'm here to answer any.
I don't know how many other people feed dry hay like we do, but I'm just thinking when you're talking about the reduction of nutrition in the hay over time and the losses. Like, has anyone studied that to find out what the extra cost of wrapping product is paying off, or
Just to improve the
yeah?
quality of this. I haven't encountered study about that, but that one is like a good observation. I might start looking forward to see if wrapping will compensate with the nutrient losses. But as I have said, you preserve your hay or you ensile. The forages will always be deficient with a lot of minerals. You have to supplement anyway.
And you should test.
Yeah. Testing is really very important. It's really hard to go guessing because if you would see different studies, different analysis of the same forages, they differ a lot. So sometimes you wouldn't know if someone will tell me, can you formulate me a ration using corn silage? Like, which among of these analysis should I use for you? So it takes a lot of guessing, and as much as possible in ration formulation, you want to be accurate. And I hope you already know that if you want some testing, NOAA can have your sample and send it to them.
It's a good kind of business.
So are you thinking about wrapping dry hay? Well, there's all kinds of options. I know if you could bale it up wet, use less beans, but you get higher quality, higher protein, higher nutrients. Wrapping is stressful, and
Yeah, but you sure get a lot of benefit from it because when you ferment the forages, they become more digestible. You get good bacteria as well, which are very helpful to the rumen. So, but yeah, you're right. We have to look for a study comparing like the expenses and the losses.
But from a as a nutritionist, like let's just take cattle you're feeding, like yearling calves up to market weight, where they need they need a lot of energy. You would probably prefer to see a wrapped silage than a dry hay.
I would always recommend the combination of both.
So access to dry hay.
There should always be an access to dry hay. I feel a bit sad when a farmer would say, I'm only using
Right.
like too wet with forages. If, as much as possible, I wanted to recommend using something dry. And the combination of both always works better than just using one kind.
Okay, so I have another question on the wrapping, because when we have done wrapping, there's the optimum moisture level, but most of the guys I talk to who wrap a lot of hay, just wrap it from morning till night, and they say it always turns out good. It doesn't matter whether it's 50% moisture or 25% moisture. What's your opinion on that?
Do you have an opinion on that?
I think I've had the same observation. We tend to wrap a lot of wetter stuff, like we're often cutting one day and baling and wrapping the next. And unless you do your end cap bales or your first two bales at the start and the end of the row, sometimes those don't turn out real great, but the rest of the feed always seems to turn out just fine, nice smell to it. Cows love eating it.
And it's ranging from probably about 50 down to 25 or even, yeah.
Right, from our experience, you can make pretty good almost dry hay if you're in that 15 to 20 or even a couple into like 25. If you just bale it, I don't know how tight you're baling it, but we bale it loose and you wrap it. Or you have to be above 30. So there are studies that show that fermentation is wonky between like 25 to 40 because there's not quite enough moisture to ferment, so it kind of can go. So we've had that experience too, where the hay, I mean, it's still feedable, but it seems like they don't do as well on it. So either you make it really wet, 40 plus, or you keep it under 25. But that 25% stuff is really nice. You do have to make sure you use enough wrap. I don't think that it's because it's drier, it'll keep with less wrap because it's still.
So basically you're making a dry feed then?
Yeah, you're dry feed, but you're preserving it.
Okay.
So it doesn't go through fermentation, but it keeps, so it won't go moldy.
Yeah, it won't spoil on you. But
Yeah, it won't spoil.
It's not fermented.
Not fermented. A little bit, like you'll get a little bit of the smell, but it's not. But it keeps, like, it preserves it. Yeah. We do that a lot because hay's almost dry, but not quite, but we have the wrapper, so we're like, just get it done.
But you're saying that's below 25.
Yeah.
At 25 to 40 is sort of a,
Is the iffy range. We've had bales not, like, they look fine and they feed okay, but you can tell the quality is just not, and it's kind of, it smells off sometimes, so you'll get the tobacco smell in it. So yeah.
maybe the reason we hear the anecdotes from people who just keep baling and it's always good is because it's drying out really fast and there's not many bales that are in that range. Right?
Just
Up to
miss the
25 to
ranges.
40 here. It's going below 25
Yeah.
pretty quickly on a nice day. But from 25 down to dry hay at 15 takes a real nice day. Some days it's just too
Oh, yeah.
humid to get it there.